So, Dwight, we've talked about making a memorable villain before, but how do you make a great villain?
Right. And so the difference is, I think all great villains would be memorable, but not all
Mm-hmm.
memorable villains would be great.
Mm-hmm.
A memorable villain is somebody that your people will remember for a long time, and it could just be because he's the guy that almost killed your party.
Yeah.
That's eh. A memorable villain a great villain would be somebody who's doing despicable acts for the greater good.
Yes.
So and there's not a lot of good examples of this. So you get like a Thanos, and he's kind of eh.
Freeze is a great example.
Mr. Freeze is a great example to a certain degree because he's trying to save his wife in the Batman series, but it's kind of this thing where it's like, would you really have gone through all that trouble?
Yeah.
Would you really be willing to kill that many people to just save your wife? I think there's a line that crosses. I'm thinking of Grindelwald in the Crimes of Grindelwald, Harry Potter, the kind of the prequel movies, if you will.
Yeah.
He's trying to, I guess, bring about magic users into a more of a power statement. So I guess that's somewhat like that. What I would think would be more of a villain who is maybe the last of their kind, or potentially they're going to try to stop some sort of a genocidal thing against their people.
Yeah, but how they
have to do it
is evil. So now it's this fun thing where
can be evil,
can
right?
be evil, or it's
but in their eyes, the end is justifying the means. So
Yes.
like if I have to. So, for instance, look at it this way. Think about it this way from like epic fantasy. Let's say you have a powerful sorcerer, and they're a kingdom of, let's say, just humanoids are coming to wipe out the forest that they're protecting, and their people are in there. And they decide just to basically rain down fire and brimstone right outside and just sweep through thousands of soldiers and other people. That makes them a huge villain now. But in reality, they're a hero to their own people because they were able to stop the onslaught from these evil people. So I would look at it from like what would they do that if they were in a war, they would get a medal for, or get hung for, depending on which side won the war.
Yeah.
And so I would make my villain have some sort of idea and carry that idea out that basically they're trying to protect their people.
Yeah.
And it could be a thing where you guys actually are at war with them. And they're the villain because of that. And that could lead to some really cool, fun stuff right near the end, where the villain and the heroes could have some sort of dialogue, some sort of communication, some sort of reveal, where you realize, wait a minute, my people. I never saw the movie Avatar, but I think that's kind of in there. The humans that are going and destroying the world.
Yes, you are spot on with that. Where
and then one of the humans are like, wait a minute.
Few of the humans are like, this is going too far.
We're the evil ones.
We're the evil ones. We need to stop and leave.
So what if that's the scenario, right? So a great villain is good, and throw out alignments for a half a second, because they still could be good. I would probably make them at neutral at best, just to make sure that they're like chaotic neutral or lawful neutral. They have their own laws that they're following, and they may not be your laws. And so what you'd have there, and the nice thing with like a D&D or an RPG or even a Vampire the Masquerade or anything like that, anything where you have like something alien, i.e. not human, you can easily have a concept where your villain is that other species, that other thing.
Yes.
And they're doing what's right for their own kind, which isn't necessarily right for your kind. And you can have a nice thing at the end where the players have this consequence, this struggle, this moral struggle of, do we kill this guy or gal and end their plans? But knowing that if we end their plans, we actually are probably genociding their entire race.
Yeah.
Or do we help them? But if in so helping them, now we're turning against our own race. And so I just think that to make a great villain, you need to make sure that all their motives are rooted in something that if your heroes were doing it, they would also see it as good.
Yeah.
So
being able to have the players walk a little bit in their footsteps, not necessarily all the way, but enough that they're like, do we really want to?
Right.
But we have to do something about it.
Right. I mean, and then that might lead to the role-playing aspect of, okay, is there a middle ground now? And you can see this, like, I think The Witcher might be a great example of this, where at one time, because all the worlds have kind of collided and things are moving in and out, but at one time there was only elves on this
Yes.
planet, and then humans got introduced, and dwarves got introduced, and all the other monsters in the Witcher world got introduced because like the spheres, basically think about it like reality had all intersected, and at certain points people got left or things got left on this one planet as things moved away from it. And so now everybody there is just trying to make the best of a bad situation, really.
Yes.
But the elves are the most screwed over because it was their planet and they were the only ones there from what I could gather of the history. So now everyone else, now the humans are taking over. They're racist against the elves. They're hunting down the elves at times. So you could have a really good thing where like maybe one of the elves or even maybe one of the other, like maybe a human sorcerer or something has decided, you know what? This is their planet. And I need to do what I can to get us back to whatever plane we used to come from. And they're creating all sorts of havoc and stuff against their own kind, but they're trying to do it to save a different kind because they feel that the whole situation's wrong. And I think that's a scenario where you have a villain who's doing really good work, and you can't really argue with the villains. Like, this is my problem with the Thanos. Like, oh, the universe is too populated. Is it?
Is it?
I mean, like, is it really?
So yeah,
I mean,
Earth might die for everybody in the Avengers,
Sure.
but it's not like they can't find another planet because there's so many in that world.
That's the problem, right? So, like, in the comic books, he was trying to kill half of everything to marry death, which is a different conversation. So he wasn't a likable villain at all. He didn't really care. So in the movies, they're like, well, we need to make him at least somewhat relatable. So he's trying to save people by killing half the people. And you're like, I don't think that really works. And so that's why I think the concept of like in a Witcher scenario where you have a really powerful or a cabal of wizards or sorcerers or something that have like, we're going to move our people back to whatever plane we came from 1,000 years ago, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Because we don't belong here. And maybe one of them has seen a vision or has figured out a way to get back to that world. And they're like, honestly, things are so much better there. They have medicine. I mean, maybe they're coming back to this world, like the world we're in right now. And they're like, honestly, we're going to lose our powers from it. But they have medicine, like they have homes, they have AC, they have, they have chocolate, like whatever things you can think of. Like the reasons why you don't want to time travel back to Europe in the 1400s is the reason to leave.
Yeah.
That is the reason to leave the Witcher's world, right? Indoor plumbing.
That's why the vampires in there were kind of honorable because they're trying to wait for their world to open up again so they can go home.
Kind of like, I just want to leave this place. And so maybe the humans have figured a way out of it, right? And so this is like this concept of like, this is a great villain would be this leader that's like, I'm calling all of our people back home. But in the process, they have to kill a bunch of people and you're the same people.
Yes.
Right? And then it's kind of interesting where you're like, well, how do we fight against that? And especially when you figure out what the reason is. And this is where I would tease out the reasoning. Like
teasing out
just like, so maybe every third adventure, every second adventure, they come across somebody and they start hearing the ravings, right? The ravings of the fanatic who believes, the great wizard. And they're like, it's like, we're just going home. Don't you want to go home? And I was like, well, my home is just 3 miles up the road. It's like, no, that's not your home, bro. That you stole that from the people that were rightfully here. Don't you want to go home? And you could even do this in a modern setting, actually. I mean, to be, I don't care about political correctness. You can ask him. And so you could do this sort of thing. So like, what if there is like somebody like myself that's like, we white Europeans need to leave America and go back home because we stole it from the Native Americans. Doesn't matter if you agree with my logic or not. I don't know if I agree with my logic or not. But the point is you could have a villain who says, look, this is what I want to do because I think we have caused detrimental harm to another group and we can have a better life if we go back. That's another way to do it. And I think there's some really cool, compelling arguments for creating a villain who wants the best for everybody. But in the process, they know it's kind of like The Matrix. The movie The Matrix. So I'm like Wayback Machine. So the movie The Matrix, there's a scene in there where it's like, we can't wake everybody up because if we woke them up, many of them would rebel. They would freak out about it. They'd commit suicide. Like, there's a lot of people here that are not really ready to hear the truth of my words. Well, this wizard, this powerful person's like, yeah, I know that. I know that 80% of the population is going to fight me on this, and I don't care.
I just need 20% to keep doing my...
Don't even need that.
Yep, Jens justified.
I have enough power that I can do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so now your players are rising up in this guy's evil, this guy's trying to take over everything. Maybe there's entire towns now that have been quote unquote decimated, but in reality he's moved them back.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's moved them back across the void.
Yeah.
You know, there's whole like, so you keep coming across like, oh my God, what did this guy do? Right? Because the food's still warm. Like you come across like there's no one in the town,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything's gone, but all their stuff's still there. Their pictures, their, you know, what did he do? And no one knows exactly what he's doing. In reality, he's literally sucking everybody in an area back to the real world or that other world. And they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So it's like these really cool things where you can do that. So I think a great villain is somebody, and you know, recap it and we'll be done. A great villain is somebody who literally believes in their own goals so much that they are in some ways maybe lawful good
Yeah.
toward that goal,
Definitely.
no matter what they have to do. So thanks guys. Take care.